learner. I, Professor Shachisha from School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, welcome you all in today's session. In today's session, I will discuss the concept of environmental sustainability. I will further discuss the concept of ecosystem, ecosystem services, and energy flow in detail. To begin with, what is environment sustainability? As we can see, it is made up of two terms, environment and sustainability. Environ means surrounding or to encircle. Environment is defined as the circumstances and conditions that surround an organism or group of organisms. In other words, we can say that the social and cultural conditions that affect an individual or a community is known as environment. It is also sum total of all external conditions and influences that affect the living organism. In the second word, sustainability, it is basically the capacity to endure. In ecology, the word describes how biological systems remain diverse and productive over time. If I define sustainability according to Brundtland Commission of the United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development, it defines sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, we can say that the concept of sustainability is not only limited to environmental dimension, it also rests on three pillars of intersecting cycles which represent social, economic and environmental dimension. Sustainability is also defined as the efficient and equitable distribution of resources, whether intergenerationally or intragenerationally over time, with the operation of economic activity within the confinedness of a finite ecosystem. Speaking about the environmental sustainability, it refers to maintaining the viability and health of the natural world. Dear learner, in the previous session you have learned about the natural environment. So, environmental sustainability includes natural environment, it includes renewable environmental resources, rationing non-renewable resources until renewable substitutes are found, controlling pollution, maintaining ecosystem sustainability, etc. As I have discussed, environmental sustainability, social sustainability and the third component, economic sustainability, they all are interrelated. Social sustainability, if I say, it refers to providing an acceptable level of well-being and quality of life for people over time. It includes minimizing, number one, destructive conflicts, having acceptable level of fairness, opportunity and diversity, and also meeting basic needs for health and well-being. The third component, which I was saying, economic sustainability, as the name says, it refers to managing finances and investments to promote productive economic activity into the future. So, I can say that environmental sustainability is one of the biggest issues faced by the mankind at present. The reason being is increasing population along with tremendous escalation in anthropogenic activities. It has raised several questions on the sustainability of natural resources and our planet. We know that no part of the earth is now untouched by the effect of human activities or pollution. Ever increasing human population and increment in per capita consumption of resources coupled with urbanization, technological advances, it has put great constraint on the natural resources. As I was saying, urbanization, industrialization, modern agricultural practices which use number of agrochemicals like fertilizer, pesticide, insecticide, etc. They have polluted the water resources. They have polluted our air, soil all around the globe. So, the natural resources are not only being overexploited, but also becoming contaminated with toxic chemical and making it difficult for the survival of future generation. So, the concept of environmental sustainability is about the natural environment. It is about how to remain productive and resilient to support human life. It also relates to the ecosystem integrity, carrying capacity of natural environment. I hope that you have learned what is carrying capacity in the previous session. It requires that natural capital be sustainably used as a source of economic input and as a sink for waste. So, the implication is that the natural resources must be harvested no faster than they can be regenerated. And the second is waste must be emitted no faster than they can be assimilated by the environment. This is because the earth system has limits or boundaries within which equilibrium is maintained. There are a number of evidences to support this concern, the concern about the sustainability of the environment that is increasing. The effect of climate change, for instance, it provides a convincing argument for the need for environmental sustainability. We know that climate change refers to the significant and long-lasting change in the climate system. It is caused by natural climate variability or by human activities. These changes, as we all know, it includes warming of the atmosphere and ocean, diminishing ice levels, rising sea levels, increasing acidification of the ocean, and increasing concentration of greenhouse gases. We have witnessed many environmental related or climate related disasters in recent time. So, climate change shows the sign, and it has also affecting the biodiversity. Biodiversity, as we know, is the variety and variability of organism, and if we see the current rate of biodiversity loss, it has exceeds the natural rates of extinction. I can say that the boundaries of the word's biome, they are expected to change with climate change, as species are expected to shift to higher latitude and altitude, and there may be or there will be a global vegetation cover change. It is also predicted that by the year 2080, about 20% of coastal wetland could be lost due to sea level rise. All of these are important issues of environmental sustainability, because as already pointed out, they have implication for how the natural environment remain productive, stable and resilient to support human life and development. As I was telling you that human well-being is closely linked to the health of the environment, over the past few decades, we have witnessed that humans have changed ecosystem more extensively than any other period of time in human history. What is the reason? Largely to meet the rapidly increasing demand for food, fresh water, timber, fiber, fuel and other things. This has resulted in an irreversible loss of biodiversity, as I have told you, and ecosystem, and consequently there is a loss of ecosystem services which is provided by the ecosystem. So, for humans, it is the potential for long-term maintenance of well-being, which in turn depends on the maintenance of the natural world, natural resources and ecosystem structures and services. To achieve environmental sustainability, we require a development which is sustainable or sustainable development. Sustainable development has been defined in many ways, but the most frequently quoted definition is from our Common Future, which is also known as Brundtland Report. It says that sustainable development is the development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. In Rio Summit in 1992, it is agreed that 3 pillars of sustainable development. First one is environmental protection, second and third is economic development and social development. And it has also reaffirmed that responsibility to ensure that our decision today do not undermine the well-being of future generation. To elaborate more, the sustainable development is a core concept within global development policy and agenda. It provides a mechanism through which society can interact with the environment without risking or damaging the resources for the future. So, in other words, sustainable development calls for improving living standard without jeopardizing the earth ecosystem or causing environmental challenges such as deforestation, water and air pollution, loss of biodiversity, which is ultimately results in the problem like climate change or extinction of species. So, it is an approach to development in which resources are used in a way that allow them to continue to exist for others, meeting human development goals while at the same time sustaining the ability of natural system to provide the natural resources and ecosystem services upon which the economy of the society and well-being of the society depends. Talking more about the sustainable development, the world leaders have later recognized the sustainable development as the major challenge. Then in 2000, the Millennium Development Goals were developed. These goals were developed to lead the world towards a more sustainable future by 2015. At the Millennium Summit, which is the largest gathering of world leaders in history, they adopted the United Nations Millennium Declaration. In this, the countries committed for a new global partnership to reduce extreme poverty, and they set a series of time-bound targets with a deadline of 2015, which are now known as Millennium Development Goals. Then a new development agenda was needed beyond 2015. So, country agreed in 2012 at Rio Plus 20, which is the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, to establish an open working group to develop a set of sustainable development goals. After more than a year of negotiation, the open working group presented its recommendation for 17 sustainable development goals. So, in early August 2015, the 193 member states of the United Nations reached consensus on the outcome document of the new agenda, which is known as Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Finally, in 2015, countries adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which came into force from January 2016. So, why I am talking about Sustainable Development Goals? The reason being is the Sustainable Development Goals put environmental sustainability at the center of sustainable development with many goals and targets. So, we can say that environmental sustainability should ensure the indefinite use of natural resources to meet human needs without compromising the health of the ecosystem. Coming to the ecosystem, as we were discussing, that earth human population has increased. So, there is a decline in natural ecosystem and there is a changes in the balance of natural cycles which have negative impact on both humans and other living system. As I was telling that there are strong evidences that we are eroding earth carrying capacity, there are limits to growth on a finite planet. So, the effects are interactive, complex, unpredictable and escalating as we know that we are heading for a global average temperature rise of more than 2 degrees centigrade over pre-industrial level. So, what I wanted to say is that human activity has profoundly changed the ecosystem properties. To sustain our food production or our livelihood, we have converted forest and other productive land into cropland, mangroves into aquaculture, fertilizers have altered basic nutrient cycles, patterns of energy flow, and economic development has altered these ecosystem properties in a way that has threatens ecosystem structure and functional integrity. For an ecosystem, if we talk about the ecosystem sustainability, it means maintaining ecological processes over a long period of time. So, you may be wondering, what are these ecological processes? These ecological processes are, for example, biogeochemical cycles, whether it is carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, oxygen, water cycle, etc., food chain, food webs, energy flow, production, population dynamics, succession, etc. So, if an ecosystem is able to maintain its structure and function over time in the face of all the external stress, it is said to be sustainable. To understand it better, first let us discuss what is an ecosystem, what is its structure and how it functions. The term ecosystem, if you see, it was proposed by a British ecologist, A.G. Tensley, in the year 1935. The word eco was originated from the Greek word oikos, which means surrounding, and the system is a network of interdependent components and processes with materials and energy flowing from one another. The ecosystem, if you see, it is self-regulating, independent primary unit of ecological hierarchy. If we see the ecosystem, it represents the basic functional unit of ecology. It comprises of the biotic community, which are mutually related with their non-living or abiotic environment. Thus, a biotic community and its abiotic environment together represent an ecosystem. Ecosystem therefore includes both the living organism, which are known as biotic community, and the non-living environment, which is known as abiotic environment, which are inseparable, interrelated and interact upon each other. The other definition, for example, E.P. Udom, in 1971, he has defined the ecosystem as the basic fundamental unit of ecology, which includes both the organism and the non-living environment, each influencing the property of other and each is necessary for the maintenance of life. The other definition of ecosystem is the sum total of living organism, the environment and the process of interaction between the various components of the system. So, we can say that ecosystem includes living organism, their environment and the processes and interaction of the components. So, by the definition we can say that an ecosystem consists of a biological community, its physical and chemical environment and the dynamic interaction that link both of them. Ecosystem is also thought of as energy transformer and nutrient processor. A diversity of ecosystem exists throughout the world and that can be classified according to their functional group and physical context. There are a number of ecosystem, whether it is forest, whether it is aquatic, whether it is terrestrial or whether it is grassland. The ecosystem represent the integration of biotic community and the abiotic environment. The capacity of the community or the biotic community to modify its environment, it totally depends on its structure and the degree to which it controls energy flow, biogeochemical cycles and climate conditions. In the next session, I will be discussing the structure of ecosystem, function of ecosystem, processes of ecosystem functioning, ecological pyramids, food chain, food web and material cycling in detail. In this session, till now we have learned that ecosystems are very important for our sustenance. The reason is the ecosystem services they provide, services that improve human well-being. So, I will now discuss the services which ecosystem provides us. To understand the ecosystem services, it is important to understand that some ecosystems are more productive than others, and that several different abiotic factors, particularly climate and nutrient availability, interact to influence the production in different biomes. There are producers which are basic of ecosystem production, while consumers, decomposers and detritivores all play a very essential role. Energy is lost as it passes from producer to consumer to detritivores and decomposer, and effectively limiting most food chains to only a few trophic levels. As I was telling you, Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, MA, it is a report that was initially called by the United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan in 2005. This Millennium Ecosystem Assessment has assessed the consequence of ecosystem change for human well-being, and they have tried to establish the scientific basis for action need to enhance the conservation and sustainable use of ecosystem and the contribution of these ecosystems to human well-being. In this Millennium Ecosystem Assessment report, over 2,000 authors and reviewers, they contributed their knowledge to the massive undertaking. The Millennium Assessment focuses basically on 4 types of ecosystem services. The services are the benefits people receive from ecosystem. These ecosystem services are categorized into 4 categories: provisioning services, regulating services, cultural services and support services or supportive services. So, the first one, provisioning services, as the name indicates, these are the provision or the essential material goods such as food, water, wood, timber which is used as a fuel, fiber, etc. The regulating services, they regulate, they influence component of the environment. For example, climate, flood, disease, waste, water quality, etc. Cultural services, they provide recreational, educational, they can be spiritual, they provide the aesthetic benefits. Underlying these 3 services are supporting services, which include functional property of an ecosystem. For example, soil formation, photosynthesis, nutrient cycling, etc. Together, these 4 types of services forms a very important linkages to human well-being. I can give you one simple example of ecosystem services which is provided by river ecosystem. Consider the river ecosystem, or for example Ganges river and its services to human along its course. As its source, it is from Gangotri glacier, the river receives runoff from the Himalayan mountain, which it sends downstream along with provisioning services such as food, water and timber. It also provides various regulating services by absorbing runoff during the monsoon season, by supporting decomposers which break down and detoxify waste. It provides cultural services at many spiritual significant sites along its course, for example Banaras, Haridwar, etc. And when the river does flood, it provides supporting services in the form of rich fertile soil that it deposited in the floodplain. So, it is a simple example, but the services provided by the river Ganges or a river system is immense. The next topic which I will discuss today is energy flow in an ecosystem. Energy flow in an ecosystem is very important for maintaining its structure and function. The existence of every living being, living world, it depends upon the flow of energy and the circulation of material through the ecosystem. The energy is required for the performance of all the life activities. The source of this energy is sun. The solar energy, we all know, it enters the space in the form of light rays. If we see, approximately 57% of solar energy is absorbed in the atmosphere and scattered in the space. About 36% are expanded in heating water and land and evaporating water. Nearly 8% of light energy strikes the plant, of which 80 to 85% is absorbed and only 50% of it is utilized in photosynthesis. So, talking about the energy cycle, it is based on the flow of energy through the ecosystem. Energy flow from sunlight is converted by plants themselves into growing new plants material, which may be new leaves, flower, fruit, branches, root of the plant, etc. Since plant can grow by converting the sun's energy directly into their tissue, they are known as producer in the ecosystem. The plants are used by the herbivorous animals as herbivorous animals, which gives them energy. A large part of this energy is used up for day-to-day supporting growth of tissues, maintaining blood flow, body temperature, etc. And energy is also used for activities such as looking for food, finding shelter, breeding, bringing up young ones, etc. The carnivores, in carnivores, they depend on herbivore animal as in which they feed. Thus, the different plant and animal species are linked to one another through food chain. Each food chain has 3 or 4 links. However, as each plant or animal can be linked to several other plant or animal through many different linkages, these interlinked chain can be depicted as a complex food web. Thus, this is called the web of life that shows that there are thousands of interrelationship in nature. The energy in the ecosystem can be depicted in the form of food pyramid or food energy pyramid. The energy pyramid has a large base of plants which are called producer. The pyramid has a narrower middle section that depicts the number and biomass of herbivorous animal, and herbivorous animal are called first order consumer. The apex depicts the small biomass of carnivorous animal. These animals are called second order consumer. Man is one of the animal which is at the apex of the pyramid. Thus, to support mankind, there must be a large base of herbivorous animal and an even greater quantity of plant material. When plant and animal dies, these material is returned to the soil after being broken down into simpler substances by decomposer, mainly bacteria, fungi or other. So, if you see that the energy flow in an ecosystem, it can be represented diagrammatically in a simplified manner. You can see in the figure, the boxes represent the trophic level and the pipes depict the energy flow in and out of each level. Only about half the average light energy impinging upon the green plant is absorbed in the photosynthesis machinery, out of which 1 to 5% is converted into food energy and rest it passes out as heat in the atmosphere. Energy accumulated by plants or the producer in an ecosystem is called primary production and it is represented by Pg or A. And the energy left after respiration and stored as organic matter in the producer is the net primary production and it is represented by Pn. Net primary production actually represent food potentially available to primary consumer which feeds upon plant. So, the primary consumer, they take in chemical potential energy in the form of plant food. Most of it dissipate in the form of heat and lost out of the ecosystem. Only a small part of the energy is fixed in the form of chemical potential energy in the protoplasm. The same process is repeated at the secondary consumer level and so on. Therefore, at each step in the transfer of energy from one trophic level to another, large amount of energy is degraded into heat and never returned back to ecosystem. There are 4 successive steps in the production process. These are gross primary productivity, net primary productivity, net community productivity and secondary productivity. The gross primary productivity, it is the total energy stored in the food material which is synthesized by the green plant, or total rate of photosynthesis including the organic matter used up in the respiration during total photosynthesis or total assimilation. The third one is net community productivity. It is the rate of storage of organic matter which is not used by the heterotrophs during the period under consideration, usually the growing season of the year. This is not primary production, it is minus heterotrophic consumption. Secondary productivities is the rate of energy storage at consumer level and is referred as secondary productivity. There are 3 fundamental aspects of productivity: standing crop, material removed and the production rate. So, to conclude this session, in this session we have discussed the concept of environmental sustainability, which is about the natural environment and how it remains productive and resilient to support human life. As we have learned, it relates to ecosystem integrity and carrying capacity of natural environment. It also requires that natural capital be sustainably used as a source of economic input and a sink for a waste. The implication is that the natural resources must be harvested no faster than they can be regenerated, while waste must be emitted no faster than they can be assimilated by the environment. We know the reason because the earth system has limits or boundaries within which equilibrium is maintained. The next topic which we have discussed is ecosystem. We have learned that it is a self-regulating, independent, primary unit of ecological hierarchy. We have learned that it is a functional unit with a set of inputs and outputs within the boundary, whether these are natural, arbitrary, etc. There are living components which are known as biotic component, or non-living one, abiotic component, and the energy changes and their functioning in ecosystem are referred as energy flow. Dear learner, if you recall, the primary producer, they are consumed by herbivores. The energy is transferred from producer to consumer. At each trophic level, part of energy is utilized in growth, in production, some part are converted to heat in respiration and some are converted into waste or they are not consumed. So, this is all for today's session. In the next session, I will be discussing the structure and function of ecosystem in detail. Thank you.